Claudius, Vivian, and Ulysses are in the server room of the Balthazar Correctional Facility inside of this tower that oversees A block, a incarceration block to the rich and powerful. How do you want to go about tracking this message?
He wants to connect to the mainframe. If they're in the server room, he can just physically do it, which is probably safer than trying to wirelessly, just because it's a direct connection. Maybe he can cover his tracks better that way. He's going to do his best to not leave any footprint or trace, just wipe any part of his presence by the time he leaves. He wants to take the ID information, either a user ID or an IP, to try to determine if the user on the other end is within this facility or if it's being kicked out somewhere else, and if he can get any specific information as to what that is.
Let's start there.
Can I tell you something nerdy and you guys can choose whether to use it or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's what I think reasonably in our world you would do if you had access to like the central computer network. There's a thing called the man-in-the-middle attack. And basically you take over their network, you pretend you're Facebook, and you get their login credentials because they've sent them to you, and then you pass them to Facebook. So you gain access to everything somebody sends through you, and then it goes to the correct place, but you get to read everything in the middle. So I can imagine this is the same kind of thing, right? Where we have the endpoint, we can pretend to be this middle portion, and then we could read what's going back and forth. And maybe that can be like the approach that we're taking of we could reasonably get their login or how they're connected to this service through doing that. And then we could trace to where it goes somewhere. Maybe not exactly, but at least we'd have a reasonable chance of doing it.
I'm into that.
That sounds cool as hell.
And I think what could be interesting about it too is then if we reply, we could basically watch what happens on the network. So we reply, it goes back to them. We would have to send them something for this to work. So there's a little bit of risk associated too of we have to guess at what the answer to who's coming to the dinner party is or something like that.
Oh, can I even spend a Benny to retroactively have asked Mac if he recognized the name Calgen, if that meant anything to him, like if that was a person here?
Sure. He would say that it came down from someone a little bit higher in the hierarchy of the prison, that if someone came looking for that, you should let them have access to A Block 47.
Okay, so it was like a code word presented to the employees in the prison that would lead them back to the computer terminal.
Yeah, that would lead them to whoever was asking for that name to the tablet.
Okay, we are first establishing control that allows us to be this middleman.
Yeah, so just make a computer's roll just flat.
Into a 1, 7 plus 2 is 9.
Okay, maybe not only do you get the middleman thing, but you're able to tell that someone was here before in this mainframe, and unlike you, they left some tracks that would be really hard to follow if you weren't the blowing up machine that you are. So I think you can tell that someone was here and they added like a second level of security where they wanted their own middleman in this server that you can just bypass. But basically they left it here as like a trap to catch anyone that was trying to come in here and try to track them back. So now that you circumnavigate that, you think you're scot-free.
So we have this set up now. Our next major step would be to send a message so that we can track it back and see what happens. I want to field questions for anybody else as to things I should do while we're in here before we trigger that. The only other thing that comes to my mind is wiping any traces of us being here, perhaps scrubbing the video or something like that, and then trying to check the video feed from yesterday to see if we can get an ID on the person who was physically there.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
You want to do that first?
I think we should do that before we trigger the other thing, which might have more serious consequences.
Cool. I could either give you a basic amount of information, or if you wanted to roll and risk failure, you could potentially get more, whichever you'd prefer.
I'll risk it. I'll risk it for the biscuit. Plus 2, that's an 8.
Okay, you can scrub yourself out. Yeah, there are cameras in this whole tower overlooking all of A block. The resolution can only be so good on one of those things, like even in the future. I feel like it's more limited by the lens than anything else, and the amount of like, especially since it's night photography, like there is a bunch of white lights everywhere, but a lot of stuff is sort of lost. I do think you see a car pull up to A47. Let me think about what information I can give you with.
Can we get a plate?
Oh yeah, like a plate number.
That's pretty good, huh? Is there something that could be not a plate, but kind of give you the same amount of information? Like a really unfortunate coincidence for this person? Something you wouldn't have thought of in a million years that would tip you off?
Maybe there are only like 3 of this specific model of car in existence
That's
anymore.
exactly what I was going to say. What if it's, is it like similar to the one Claudius has? Like it was a limited run or only a certain number of them were ever made or...
Yeah, let's go with it's the same model of car as you guys drove in here. And yeah, Claudius there is not many of those made, and you could probably pretty easily track them once you got back to Trin City, who it was sold to.
When Vivian sees the car on the screen, she dubiously looks over at Claudius with a little duck face of scrutiny.
They have good taste.
You see the profile of apparently a woman step out of the car, classily dressed. I mean, she's got big clicky-clacky heeled boots and big shoulders, and you can't really make anything out beyond that. Like not buff shoulders, but like
shoulder pads.
Pointy shoulders.
Power
Yeah.
shoulders. Vivian leans in and says, "Click, clack, bitch."
They enter with a package, and then they leave the house, and it looks like the package has been torn open. They get back in the vehicle, and they drive off. That's that. What next?
Could Ulysses take this opportunity to do something nice for Mac? I would like to field ideas from everybody else, but I was thinking fill out some sort of incident report that paints him in a heroic manner, maybe to coincide with the video feed cutting out that they're deleting. Like something happened and he was able to, take control of the situation. Even just like alter something on the far back end that they will not catch, like maybe give him a pay bump or...
There you
I just
go.
want to get Mac in trouble. That's the biggest thing.
I think you can write up an incident report that comes into the areas where the security cameras aren't, that are currently cut off. And then, you get him a pay bump in like relation to that and kind of hide it so it looks like he was commended for that. Maybe by someone that doesn't directly work in the prison. Like maybe you write it so that Tag Wilder came into the facility and personally gave him a pay bump or something. So like no one can contest it without like calling up fucking the Wilder family, which they don't want to do.
So like I do it under Tag's profile, like being in the mainframe, I hack into his profile and do that shit.
Vivian's like,
good.
do it like this. It'll be hilarious.
Oh my dear, you're naughty. I like this. This is fun.
We should do this more often.
I did promise myself I wouldn't violate the privacy of others, but I think this is a special occasion. And really, rules are made to be broken, aren't they?
In most cases, but,
Yes, and he'll go to work and set that up for his buddy Mac.
I think Claudius this entire time has been staring at the monitor while you guys are screwing around with this. And maybe that video is just playing on a loop. And he's been distracted all day. And he's like fiddling with the wedding ring that he still wears on his finger, like just spinning it around and around and around. And he's watched this video probably loop 15, 20 times. And he like stands up very suddenly. I think I know who that is.
What?
We should go. And I can explain more later. And it's entirely possible that my family has more to apologize for.
Oh dear. Should we still send the message?
Yes, Yes.
He turns to Vivian and gives her a cryptic look, perhaps a questioning eyebrow.
She's visibly grinding her her canines together, you know what I mean? Like in thought, and just jerks her head towards the door.
What are you sending?
What was the message that was on the prompt on the tablet?
Who's coming for dinner?
What do you think? It's probably not the name. We found that was the code word. Is it me? Am I the one that's coming for dinner?
Well, if we want to tip off the person and unsettle them, you could say, Pearl is coming to dinner.
I think as Claudius says Pearl, it takes you a minute, you're like, where have I heard that name before? And then you think about it, and that's the mother of Owen Henson, the dude that was the engineer for Mad Dog on the Noon side of the planet, and also Claudius's right-hand woman, responsible for most of their clandestine operations.
Son of a bitch. Well, I guess he's already taken care of. Just the bitch left then. Claudius, if you're certain about this. I will trust your judgment. Do you think it's worth postponing this message and confronting her in person?
She did want to have dinner, didn't she? Perhaps that can be arranged.
Perhaps if you set it up with her and we happen to appear.
What a shame that would be.
I think I would tell her the truth then. Tell her that Ulysses is coming for dinner.
Ulysses exchanges a smirk with his companions, certain in their triumph this evening, and he turns back to begin composing the message, as well as weaving together another surprise for later. And when they leave, we see that he has constructed a Trojan or a program to execute in 12 hours to send the message, Ulysses is coming to dinner.
The drive back up the Sun River towards Trinity is a bit like coming out of a deep, dark cave and seeing the faintest glimmer of light at the edge of the tunnel. Luminous orange and red mixing into a purple in the cloud cover above as Claudius, Ulysses, and Vivian drive back into Trin City, a mission on their mind. How do y'all want to make contact with Pearl Hansen, and where would you like to set up this meeting if that's the plan still?
I mean, it could just be Claudius, like, having a work meeting, you know? I assume that's something they do a lot.
Yeah, just as casual as he can of just like, I have an urgent request. We need to meet tonight. If we really want to squeeze it, we can mention Owen. I can just say we need to meet tonight. It's about Owen.
Yeah.
Has Owen already been executed?
No, Claudius stopped that for his friend, Pearl Hansen, and then he's just been like in a holding cell, kind of like waiting. Like, I don't know. I think he's just been thrown in prison and forgotten about, kind of, in the Crow Tower. Do you want to do it in the Crow Tower or somewhere more remote?
We probably meet most often in the Crow Tower. I don't know that I want to totally tip her off on, like, let's go meet in an abandoned building, if that's unusual for us, which it probably would be.
This abandoned cemetery and these graves that are already dug.
Actually, here's a shovel.
Yeah, can you bring a shovel and like a couple garbage bags?
Claudius is like, I want to tell you about this amazing investment opportunity. I came into possession of a cask of Amontillado.
Ooh.
It's in my basement.
Do you want it to be your office, her office, or the shooting range?
I think the shooting range is strangely poetic.
If this is the lady that orchestrated Luella's murder, Vivian might do a murder. She's undecided.
I mean, yeah, right? This isn't going to go well.
We cut inside this car, potentially the same car that Pearl took to orchestrate the assassination of Ulysses. And as you sit inside, what's the temperature like in here, y'all?
Frosty.
Yeah, I think it matches the cold side that we're leaving. I think Claudius is still sitting there. This is Tex's car, right? So there has to be just mood lighting and scotch and deep leather seats.
Does Tex fuck?
He's got it, right? With a belt buckle like that.
Exclusively.
Yeah.
It is not Claudius's style, and I think he's just perched on the edge of one of these seats. He's still spinning that ring in his hand. He has his phone equivalent out and has retyped a message like 8 times and is just now kind of waiting for a signal to send it.
Claudius, what do we need to know about this woman before we end up in a room with her?
Of all of the people I thought would betray me, she was fairly near the bottom of the list. She's smart. She's certainly covered her tracks. We have her son, which is an interesting bargaining chip, and if I find out that she has ordered the death of Ulysses, and she didn't come to me, that is a betrayal of the highest order. I don't think this night will end well for her.
I just don't understand. Where is the motive? What's the stake in this?
Does Pearl take any orders from Tex? Does he have the authority to reach her over you? or without your intervention.
Read my mind, Ulysses. How else would she have obtained the car? Who else would have motive to have this done? Not sure what I can swear on to tell you that I didn't have anything to do with this, but...
You're a tremendous personality and presence, but I think no one in their right mind would put themselves at risk as you did through intention. I certainly ruffled some feathers during the meeting. I don't believe that your brother was pleased with my behavior, and I know that my being around and implicating the crows in any sort of fault or wrongdoing is messy, at the very least. So there's certainly the possibility of motive. Claudius, I don't wish to have any kind of all-out war or blood feud between our families. That won't end well for anyone. There's no profit in it. At least, not on my end. But I don't know. I don't want to plan for these eventualities. I don't know. You know your brother better than us. Better than anyone, most likely. Is this related to the license issue? What would Tex do to protect the license for your family?
Anything, which is the problem.
As I expected.
Would Tex send Keaton after us?
If I was making a list of people most likely to betray me, Pearl would be near the bottom, and Keaton would be the bottom of the list. Clearly, my judgment is perhaps not to be trusted if we've learned anything from the events of today, but I don't think Keaton would do anything like that without coming to me first. Nor do I think any of Tex's children are capable of something similar.
Forgive me for running through a few scenarios. It's something I do to help myself think. What would happen if your family's license was contested? What would happen if you lost it?
Well, you're aware that we don't have any other licenses. As you said earlier, it would do well for us to prepare for things. I have prepared for an eventuality such as that. It wouldn't end well for us. I'm sure Vivian would understand more of the legal ramifications of it, but suffice to say we would face an interesting issue handing over the technology to make edicts. We could make it very difficult for that process to occur, but we are a one-license family.
Sounds like it would be a logistical nightmare.
Yes, and I could do pretty much anything to make it worse for whoever bought it, but that only gets you so far.
Would you retain any proprietary rights to any information or data whatsoever surrounding the construction of edicts or any subsystems therein? Any information whatsoever? Data, research, things like that?
I'm sure some of it. I'm not sure how much I'm willing to share about it. I trust you, but I don't want to hand you the key to the family estate quite yet.
No, of course not, and that's not what I'm asking. And now for a cutting and personal question. Tex is the head of your family, correct? Does he have the final legal say in any of these matters? Understanding that you are family and you all work together, of course, but if push came to shove, could he override what you and the rest of the family desire? Perhaps take things in a direction that you don't care for, or torpedo them, anything like that.
Tex has an incredible amount of latitude in how he would like to pursue the business. Fortunately, he has never taken much interest in that. My role has always been, as perhaps you were familiar with before you became head of your own family, making things happen, finding the ways to accomplish the things that Tex wants to happen. If push came to shove, I'm not sure who would win. Loyalty would be tested, certainly, but legally I don't think I have much right to tell him what to do.
I see.
Heavy is the head.
Thank you for your honesty and explanations. This isn't the time to speak about it, but I have ideas, possibilities for the future, and ways that our families might work together on a new venture, perhaps a shared licensure, or even a merger of some sort. I'm not much of a businessman, so I don't know the technicalities, but I have ideas, and I have plenty of them. Should the worst come to happen, or even if it doesn't, but just know that it's an avenue.
It's quite a gilded safety net.
I prefer to have friends than enemies. I believe in second chances. It's something of a creed of mine. Which leads me back to Pearl. If there is the possibility that her strings are being pulled, I would think Tex could be using her son's safety as leverage to turn her in whichever direction she can cause the most damage. Again, I don't like task, but is it possible, Claudius, that you were an intended target? That they knew you would be with us, and that the trigger was pulled regardless, or perhaps on purpose, at Tex's order?
Well, I'm not sure I would speculate in that direction. If they were, I do think it was aimed at you. Perhaps I would have been acceptable collateral damage, but you seem to have been the target, and I will believe a lot of things of Tex, but killing his own family might not be one of them.
Ulysses nods to this. That's something. Whenever possible, I like to offer clemency for things done. I don't want to make a prejudgment. I would rather see what she has to say. But allies, those we have ties with, are often more valuable than corpses. Although if the asset is tainted or damaged, it may not be worth it. I don't know. She is ultimately your employee, and you have the final say, but let's hear what she has to say first. Please, he says, looking to Vivian this time.
She's got that same pinched lip expression she's had most of the day today.
The three of you ride this bright, chromed-out elevator down into the depths of the John Henry Building. An elevator all of you have shared before. Hearts sinking as you descend 6 feet and beyond down into the basement levels. You come out onto the concrete hallways that lead you into the shooting range that has not yet been fully cleaned up. Pretty soon they might tear up the concrete that's still scored with carbon and the little texture cracks and crevices of the concrete. As much as they've tried to clean up what was done here, the scars still remain. The booth that Luella shot in and the adjacent booths were pretty well damaged in the explosion and have since been removed. As such, when you enter, it's just a long hallway where there's nothing separating you from the range itself, where bullets are fired downrange, practicing to kill targets. I think we see these old, beat-up steel cutouts of different sizes and shapes, all in the vague silhouette of humans downrange as you walk in with an echoing clatter. Time moves slowly while you await for Pearl Henson to arrive. The slow, steady flashing of a blue monitor in the corner of the room, diagnostic machine, the only contrast to the harsh white lights above. And then the door opens, and in walks a woman with large shoulder pads, clicking boots, and a phone in her hand as she takes a few steps in. As she looks up, we see only Claudius in the room. It's one of those shots where the camera can see behind the cover, but no one in the room can. I think they've taken those 3 booths that have been torn to shreds and just sort of stacked them up in one corner, but it makes enough of a barrier that we can see Ulysses and Vivian standing comfortably hidden behind that wreckage.
Claudius, I think, is sitting at a table, hands relaxed, perched in front of him. The table, I think, is probably just a matte, stainless table, and sitting on it is a small, oddly shaped pistol. It's gleaming in stainless steel and segmented. There's kind of this crude, rounded pistol grip on it that continues forward to a very small barrel, and there's dozens of rings circling each one, starting large and getting smaller towards the end, inspired by the old Earth serials, the retro futuristic ray guns. And it's sitting there. His hands aren't quite on it, but they're close by, and he's still with one hand now just spinning that wedding ring around his finger. Hello, Pearl.
Claudius, you said this was about my son. What has happened?
Does anyone else know, Pearl? Is anyone else aware of what's happened? Please don't play dumb.
No, of course not. It would be terrible for the whole family if anyone found out. Why would you think I would tell anyone?
Did Tex tell you to do something recently? Yesterday, perhaps?
A dropping realization is present on her face. Maybe not to anyone else that Pearl would talk to, but to Claudius, there is just a slight tinge, the slight change in disposition on her face as she looks poignantly to the edict on the table. He wouldn't let me come to you. I told him it was a dumb idea. I told him to run it by you, but he thought you and Kaz were too close. And Kaz and Vivian are certainly too close. I didn't think it was a good idea either. But you can't argue with a man like Tex. I promise I would have told you if the situation wasn't what it was. How did you find out?
Pearl, you know I have my ways to find out things. There was a sloppy connection, you could say, in the chain. I know someone who believes very dearly in second chances, and I've been trying to reconcile with myself whether I believe that as well. I certainly could use some second chances in my life. I'm certain you could too.
I'm unsure why this is bothering you. I understand it was a dumb move, but, I mean, what do you care about them? I don't agree with Tex, but it could be good for your family. The connections with Kaz and Vivian, and who knows what her involvement might be in the... I mean, I'm not trying to justify it, Claudius, but I would have told you if I could, but there was no way I could have told you without catching... I don't know what Tex would have done.
There's no way that you could have told me. There's not any way that we could have come to an agreement, that we could have planned something together, that we could have come up with something to run rings around Tex.
She takes a slow but sharp inhalation.
It's the loyalty, Pearl, that concerns me the most. And I thought through what we've shared and what we've done together and what I promised you about your son, that perhaps that could have come before blind loyalty to a family that has always been good to you, but it's been me that's been good to you, don't you think?
I don't know why you have to bring my son into this, and our connections could burn you as much as they could burn me. I didn't bring you into this because I didn't think you'd want to be involved. As much as I disagree with Tex, you are close with Kaz, and what could we have done to put Tex off this mission? I delayed him as much as I could already. I mean, I ran circles around him for a week. I had to do something eventually.
Do you know the rumor that I heard immediately when I called around was if I hadn't been there, they would have assumed that it had been us. Then you also drove a family car to the location. That was subtle. There's plenty of ways to handle this. And I understand that the things that we know about each other can burn each other. That's the nature of this business. That's the nature of working together. And that's the nature of trust, Pearl. So I'm not sure what we should do here.
I wouldn't do anything to betray you, Claudius. I'd never try to have you killed. I never have Keaton, anybody else you care about. If it's between you and Tex, it's you. But that's not the case here. It was an edge case where our boss, and she points upstairs, asked me to do my job. And I did my job. I honestly didn't think it had anything to do with you. And if those are the rumors circulating, that's my fault. I should have done a better job stopping that sort of thing, but when you're in the line of work that I am, Rumors tend to leak out, but that's all they are, rumors. And I can't imagine anyone else following the trail that you must have taken to find me here.
On that front, I do have pretty poor news. I'm not sure what to do, Pearl. I believe you. I really understand the conundrum, and I think what I have to do here is ask the person whose second chance it is and who has put that idea in my head what he would do, because I don't think it's my decision to make anymore. Does that sound fair to you, Pearl?
She looks confused.
You both might as well come out, I think.
I think in the lead up to this, as the nails are placed in this lady's coffin, by her own words, Vivian and Ulysses are physically very close to fit into this small stall, and I think he can actually feel her heartbeat, like, pounding where their bodies are touching.
Do you want to lead the way out?
Well, she's bodyguard. She has to step out first.
Ulysses follows with deliberate and perhaps even theatrical steps, both hands behind his back clasped as they walk out from behind the debris, Vivian leading him. His eyes are only for Pearl right now. There's two things I'd like to establish here. Ulysses wants to be able to lock down the elevator so that she cannot run to it to flee. And he wants to also have been recording this entire conversation for insurance.
Sure. Yeah, you can just do both.
I don't like that second one very much at all, but I don't know about it.
So he walks out staring at Pearl and he says, "Hello, Pearl. What's for dinner?"
She gets a notification in her pocket. My God. She looks back to Claudius for a moment, and then looks back to the two of them. I suppose there's nothing I can say, then?
As my esteemed colleague here, my esteemed friend Claudius has told you, I am a believer in second chances. Actually, can I make a roll to determine if what she's been saying is truthful? Like, does it sound like she's telling the truth?
Yeah, make a spirit roll.
Do you want me to make one as well?
Oh, actually, let's have Claudius make a persuasion roll to sort of like help make the truth more apparent, because he's kind of pushing it out of her, and then have Doug make a spirit roll. You could also use intimidate, I imagine.
Feels more intimidating, and they're functionally equivalent.
You got an edict on the table, so...
Yeah, I think we'll do intimidate. I rolled a 3. I'm going to Benny that, I think. Literally every roll I've made has ended in me blowing up, and it's just a question of how many Bennies it has taken for that to happen. It's a 13. My 6 blew up, and then I get a +2 from menacing.
She blew up her wild die and got an 8, so you got her with a raise. I think you don't have to make a spirit roll then, Doug. I think he's just pushed the truth out of her, and it seems apparent. Like, until you appeared, maybe now she sort of like has started to put on a facade, but until this moment it just sort of seemed like she was like arguing with an old friend of hers, you know, and all of it seemed like the truth.
We live in a complicated society where we have to strive to protect our families, our livelihoods, where the only way to move forward is by clawing your way up. You have a very important position with a very important family. I've met Tex. I understand his own force of personality. I don't know what he said to you, if he threatened you, if he threatened your son, anything like that.
When you say threatened her son, her unblinking eyes just blip one time.
I understand it was business, and you didn't mean it to be personal. But please understand that you tried to have me killed. And that's about as personal as a decision gets. Claudius seems open to showing you clemency. You're clearly very talented, and I hate to see that talent go to waste in such a meaningless way. I don't think I would gain anything from seeing you dead, except perhaps the vapid satisfaction of vengeance, which can be sweet in its own respect. But with my lovely wife's support and permission, I'm willing to come to terms that don't involve your death, but do involve your continued fealty with some strings attached, I'm afraid.
More than a few.
Do you find this acceptable at face value?
I do, if Claudius does. Yes.
Claudius is listening, thinking pretty deeply, and it takes him a second to respond. Ulysses, I think I would rephrase something that you had said. Pearl, it's clear, is not the one who made this personal. My brother did. My family did. This is all spun rapidly out of control, which was never the intent for any of this, and not something I would have predicted. I, too, believe that there is nothing to be gained from Pearl dying here, and I think it's important that we perhaps extract her son as a bargaining chip from Tex. I do rather like the idea of knowing this and knowing that Tex is unaware that we know. I think there needs to be some changes in our family if we're to protect our legacy. I need to think about how to do that. I'm not sure what I can offer you other than money, but that seems pointless. Friendship, I think, has already been made. I'm not sure what I can offer you, but if it's in my power, I will do my best to make it happen and make this up to you. And perhaps we can have that conversation that we keep meaning to about a future partnership, or at least knitting our families together more expertly. Perhaps if there is new management in ours, as there has now been new management in yours.
Ulysses listens to Claudius speak and keeps his expression as neutral as possible, but there is a pleased sparkle in his eye, and he inclines his head. You're correct, Claudius, of course, that Pearl did not make this personal. After all, one cannot blame the weapon, only the one pointing it, wielding it, pulling the trigger, swinging the blade. But we are not weapons, we are living, thinking beings. And so with this clemency, this understanding that I do not hold you accountable, Pearl, I will also caution you that if you do such a thing again, I will know, and I will survive, and I will make you regret it. Be our friend, be our ally, and you will flourish, and we will do everything we can to lift us all collectively higher. But if you betray us, I think he just lets that hang.
A rising tide does raise all of the boats.
And drowns the rest. And then he smiles and holds out his hand.
Vivian does not.
She looks down to it for a moment and meets your glowing eyes. Claudius and I have worked together for most of my life. I would never do anything to hurt him. If this is the path that we are to take, it's not you I have to be worried about. I appreciate my life. I've never come face to face with a man I've tried to kill before. I find I don't like it very much.
Really?
Didn't you know Claudius was with us at the time? It was quite a harrowing experience, I can assure you. Have you ever been shot multiple times with large caliber bullets? It tingles just a bit.
I guess you'd have to be more specific, but Claudius, you were with them? I had no idea. I'm very sorry.
I want to insight that. How can I insight that? That could be
Oh,
bullshit.
yeah, okay. Let's give you +3 with the rolls that have been done so far.
Spirit's a D8. I've got so much spirit.
It's pretty good.
I do want to re-roll to make sure I can get even better.
+3 is pretty solid.
+3 is pretty solid. I could always crit fail. Who knows?
Yeah.
I would have had a 7.
Then we'll
but...
have a trusting friendship.
Yeah.
Everything will work out.
Hooray!
This bitch want to come over for tea? 8.
You beat her, not with the raise. Yeah, she's telling the truth.
Okay. Okay, cool.
This has all gotten out of hand, and quite frankly, I believe we have Tex to blame for that. So, if there is to be new management, I suppose I would like to be on the right side of history. And she meets Ulysses' hand.
He grips it and I think sends a small pulsing tremor of energy into her arm. Nothing too uncomfortable, but something noticeable. And he smiles and he says, "Welcome aboard." and then turns back to Claudius and says, "Of course, Pearl is still your employee. I don't wish to overstep those bounds. And you are right, Claudius. I would like to discuss possible future enterprises, which we can do at a future time. But I think it's reasonable to assume that we are all sworn to secrecy, at this time, at least, as far as everything that was just discussed."
Discretion is my middle name.
I never knew that.
It was on the marriage certificate, but...
Well, I would agree, Ulysses. I think I owe you more than you know, and it is time for us to have that conversation. I think we should put some plans into motion. I can say I've never prepared for quite this eventuality, but it is something that I need to think about, and there are perhaps a few others who need to be brought into the circle who I trust, and I'm sure there are some that you trust as well. You are a better man than I am, Ulysses. I know that for certain, and I'm not sure who stands to gain more from this friendship and this partnership, but I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Ulysses will stride over and hold his hand out to Claudius as well, with a far more genuine smile than he had offered to Pearl. "We all have the capacity to change, to do better, to be more, in some small ways, at least. I'm not concerned with who's better, and I don't care who gains more. The fact of the matter is, we all benefit, and I believe that we're all capable of great things that will benefit everyone else. So it only makes sense to follow it through to its conclusion. We're in good company. I trust you to bring in who you deem appropriate."
He goes to shake the hand, but has sort of a hard time meeting your eyes, but smiles and nods and kind of steps back.
"To a bold new future. Who's ready for dinner?"
Thank you for listening to Sounds Like Crows Terminus. You can find us online at Sounds of Crows on Twitter. You can always email us at soundslikeCrows@gmail.com. Thank you to our lovely patrons. Thanks to everyone that stuck around during our hiatus. I certainly would have not blamed you for not doing that, but we appreciate it. And hey, we're back, baby. So we're glad to have you. Thank you to Ariel Weiss, Kirby, Devin Mingwasser, and Niles McDonald. Along with this week, Randy, Ataziel, Sandwich, and Jackie. Thank you all so much. Savage Worlds is owned by the Pinnacle Entertainment Group, who you can find at peginc.com. Music on the show was provided by myself or William Ecker. Thank you to my friends, the cast this week. Austin Holt played Claudius Crow. You can find him on our Discord server at Alchemist. Kira Nesbitt played Ulysses Rook. You can find her on her show at rpgforyouandme.com or wherever you found this podcast. Vivian Rook was played by Allie Nesbitt, who you can also find on that same show. We'll see you next week. I don't think so. If you want to just give him something that Ulysses doesn't have to be out of it for the next X hours, and then, maybe gets a level of fatigue if he doesn't sleep well tonight, that semes fair.
Yeah, it seems reasonable.
That's cool.
Give me my espresso.
She depressos the plunger on the adrenaline shot.
Pull out a big needle.
You'll be surprised where this one's administered.
I mean,
Sweet caffeine.
I mean, you definitely could have, just hit a button on the machine, but I like that you've unplugged it and then stabbed it with a needle. I think that's
for extra
cool.
measure to punish him further.
Yeah.
Oh, was that really necessary?
I think this is pronounced analgesic.
Good news.
It's a
It's a
suppository.
suppository.
All right.
Okay,
perfect.
all right. You done with the
Yeah.
scene?
Now
I
I can.
definitely need to be wheeled out on a wheelchair.
We can move on from this?
Can we,
Okay.
it's fine.
can we
Oh, yeah.
take my
Oh,
car this time? Should I say that
I
in
guess.
character and that can be our transition?
Yeah, do that.
I recognize the name Pearl, but I don't remember who it is.
That's Claudius's second in command, right?
Yep.
Like his wet works lady?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yep.
I've been thinking
All
about
right.
that the whole time. I'm like, where did I hear shoulder? Oh, you fucker.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was hoping it would work out this way.
Yeah, it's just been waiting. Like, God, where did we heard boots and shoulder pads recently? When was that?
So we can respond with that. Do we have something snappy related to pearls? Like,
Pearls before swine? That's not very good.
Clutching at
Ooh,
pearls.
I don't have anything good. I don't have any pearl
some sort
based
of diving
aphorisms.
for pearls.
Every oyster has a pearl.
You're being very shellfish, Pearl.
God, can you imagine?
Ulysses is like, I'm great at puns.
Well, Ulysses isn't that clever. Maybe he'll just follow through with Claudius's suggestion.
Or what about the name of her kid?
Oh fuck, that would be horrible.
Oh, shit.
You want to
Who's that
really
lady?
ruin her fucking day?
Yeah.
I really want to send that. The question I would pose to the group is, do we play dumb and set up a meeting with her?
Of course we play dumb.
Yeah, I mean that's so much juicier.
It is way
right?
juicier.
Like, we could get confirmation, but like if Claudius is reasonably sure that she's the one behind, like there could be somebody else working with her, but if we get to her in person, we can just shake her the fuck down.
Yeah, or just kill
That's
her.
so
I would
juicy.
be cool with that one too.
Well, sure, but yeah, we could do one before the other.
We could do them in any order
It'll
if it's
be
with an edict.
A rich full
touche.
day. Okay, yeah. Right. Did you tell us in character that this is Pearl?
No, I probably should, shouldn't I?